Hey guys, welcome back to Little Helpful Files. My name is Lindsay and we do cash budgeting and mini savings challenges, a little bit of life in general, all through the glory and by the grace of God. So today's video, we are going to be talking through the different types of budgeting methods that you could be using. And I think that this video is important to do for those of you that may be beginners and maybe just starting out in your budget for the first time, but also those of you who may be redoing your budget. You may be having to completely start over. I know for us, we just moved, so we just kind of had to do this. We had to reevaluate everything. All of our expenses changed. All of our budgeting needs changed. So we actually switched the budget method that we use. So we're going to go ahead and talk through this, and I'm going to give you 7 different budget methods, and we'll kind of talk through what they are and who they are best for, who they are not best for, and hopefully this will help you narrow it down and decide how you want to set up your budget so that you can have the most success and work your way towards some financial peace. Let's go ahead and get into the video. Okay, so we're gonna go through and unpack 7 different budgeting methods, and really this video is hopefully gonna be just a great reference tool, whether you are doing this for the first time and brand new to budgeting, because it can be overwhelming trying to understand and figure out what is the best budgeting method for you, or like I said, whether this is maybe something where you are just having to kind of go back to the drawing board, restart your budget. Maybe your finances have changed, maybe you've moved, maybe you've gotten a new job. There's so many different things that could happen. So the first budgeting method we're going to talk about is called the 50-30-20. And you've probably heard of this. This is a very common one. For the 50-30-20 budget, you are going to be breaking this up into different buckets. So really what it is you're going to split it up into 50% that will be your needs, 30% will be your wants, and 20% will be going to savings. So again, think of kind of like bills and your fixed expenses, and maybe some of those things like car and home, like mortgage and rent, utilities, cell phone bill, internet. Those things are going to be your needs, and along with groceries and gas. And then wants are going to be maybe something like eating out, some additional shopping. Your debt actually would also be going into your need category, at least your minimum debt payment. And then your savings would be your sinking funds, mini savings challenges, savings categories, high yield savings, investments, etc. So this is great if you are starting a budget for the first time, because it gets you into the habit of kind of placing the different categories within, like I said, an overall like bucket. And so it'll allow you to split it up evenly. This gives more of an overview, and it's good if you get overwhelmed with details. So if you really do want to track every single expense though, this budget is not the best for it. And I also don't feel like it's the best for impulse shoppers, because you kind of have a little bit more of a gray area, or it's more of an overall amount instead of breaking it down by every specific category and amount. So that is the first option. I have not done it that way. We are going to switch now to a zero-based budget, and this is actually what we are doing now. So we started our budgeting journey with doing the budget by paycheck method. So we'll talk about that in a few moments, but the zero-based budget is what works for us now. And again, it's because so many different things have changed within our finances, within our budget, and this is the system that works. So you are essentially giving every single dollar a home, and you are budgeting out every part of your income. And this is great if you love to track, every expense, if you really want to be strategic, and if you have a problem with overspending. So this does not mean that you are going to be at zero at the end of the month, but this means that you are going to account for everything. So let's say you've kind of put through your fixed and your variable expenses, your debt and your savings, and you may have then some carryover. You're basically just going to allocate that as a carryover amount that would stay in your checking account. So just know that when you hear zero-based budgeting, it doesn't mean that you've spent every single dollar. It's just you're assigning every dollar to a certain category or space. So this actually pairs really well with the next one, which is cash envelopes. So with cash envelopes, these can actually be combined with so many of the budgeting methods. Now you could use it just on its own by breaking up physically your cash into the different categories or envelopes that you have. but we actually pair this with our zero-based budget. So we have variable envelopes, and that is how we use our cash envelope within the zero-based budget. We also did use cash envelopes within the budget by paycheck method as well. So I find that the cash envelopes personally help because, again, I'm very visual and it's nice to see tangibly what I have for each category to spend, especially on categories that you do overspend. I highly recommend doing a cash envelope. Now, you could do this as physical cash, you could do it as a cashless or more electronic envelope if you are diligent enough in that. But if you're really trying to stop overspending or get out of debt or pay off some big credit cards or loans or things like that, I would highly recommend doing physical cash because it just makes it so easy. You can physically see what is in that envelope and you know what you have left to spend for the month. So just to go through a couple of different, who is this good for? Again, like I said, if you overspend, if you like to see the physical amount, so if you don't want to have to be kind of calculating and figuring it out, you can physically see like, okay, in this envelope, I have $15 left to spend. It gives you a solid budget to then make sure that you are actually able to save some of that money as well. I would say that if you lose things easily or the thought of carrying cash overwhelms you, that this would not be the best option. And if you like to get the cashback rewards, then you would want to use this in more of an electronic way, which is still possible. I have a video, if you reference back, of cashless, and we do use this occasionally. So I will still take the physical cash out into each of the categories and envelopes. And if I spend something on a different credit card, I will just remove that and put it into a fund to then pay that credit card back. So if you've got questions on that, leave a comment below, but it's definitely doable and manageable. All right, so the next is the budget by paycheck method. And with this method, you are actually going to be splitting up the bills based on the date that you get paid. So you're basically gonna lay it out on a calendar, figure out when is your paycheck coming, what different days in the month, and then what bills do you have prior to that paycheck, and you're gonna highlight those bills so that that paycheck covers it. So like for instance, for us, when we used to get paid bi-weekly, things like our rent and our internet and our insurance, and then like half of our groceries for the month would all be for that first paycheck. And then the second paycheck would be, let's see, if we had the rest of the utilities like electric and for the cell phone bill, and we didn't have a car payment at the time, but like the rest of our groceries and for gas. So you're essentially just breaking it up so that you know which paycheck is covering it to make sure all of your expenses are covered for the month. So this is great if you really like to see that overview and that monthly snapshot. I really liked that visually. It was always great to see and kind of highlight and know. I would match up my highlighter for the paycheck and for all the different bills. So visually I could see, okay, this is the paycheck that will cover all of these expenses. So if you're organized and are able to keep track of details, this is a great option for you. If you get paid on a regular schedule, I also would recommend this. And if you can adjust bills to come out somewhat close to each other, it also helps as well. We would always try to kind of keep things maybe either to the beginning of the month, the middle of the month, or the end of the month to have it be able to be allocated towards a certain paycheck. If you don't have time to track it or lay out like the monthly budget like this to highlight and to figure out where each bill is due and what paycheck can cover it, then it might not be the best option for you, as well as if you only get paid one time a month, because obviously that one paycheck is going to have to cover all of your expenses for the month. So moving on, the next option is called a reverse budget. And I'm not sure if you guys have heard of this before, but essentially what it is just paying yourself first. So you're prioritizing a savings percentage. So just think of it that way, like you're just gonna go ahead and take out, let's say 15%, for example, and you're gonna make sure that you save that somewhere, and then whatever you have left is what you're gonna allocate towards all of your bills and your variable expenses and your debt. So the main goal here obviously would be saving money. So if you are in the mindset and your budget is like set up and able to just really prioritize saving, then this would be a great option for you because that's what you're going to focus on first. And this also would be good, obviously, if you have even like a month ahead really on some of this, because it gives you a little bit more of a cushion and more option there. If you don't like spending the time tracking all the expenses and the smaller details, this is also a good option because again, you're kind of giving more of an overall or a percentage for your savings, and then you're gonna kind of figure out what do you have left for the expenses for the month. If you have an irregular income, this is gonna be difficult for you, and if you like to spend without like planning for the month, or you like to kind of have that flexibility in it, it's also going to be a little bit challenging to do this method. Next up, we go to the half payment budget. Now this one is different from the budget by paycheck, because budget by paycheck, you're really just splitting it up to see, okay, like this half of the month is going to be covered by this paycheck and this half will be covered by this paycheck. With the half payment budget, you are literally dividing all of your expenses by your 2 paychecks or 3 paychecks or however many times you get paid for the month. You're going to divide it so that each one is going to cover an even amount of that. Personally, I think this also works better if you are a month ahead, because I think it can be very difficult to save some of these amounts, especially if the bills are due like earlier in the month. So if you're waiting on all of those paychecks to pay this, it makes it a little bit challenging. But this is great if you get paid bi-weekly. If you are disciplined enough to not spend that money, obviously you have to set that aside. And if you feel like you're getting behind on bills, this would be a great way to kind of try to get back on track and to make sure that you're covering all of the payments needed by taking a portion out of each paycheck. Now, if you are not as organized, or if you get tempted to spend by seeing money sitting there in the account, this also might not be the best option for you. But again, this could be paired with the cash envelope. I think this is probably the best way to use it because you can take that amount out, stick it in your envelope for the month, and then when that time is up for the bill to be paid, you can take all that to go ahead and pay it. Now, our last one is a budget by priority. This would be really good if you are on a tight budget, on a low income. This is essentially budgeting everything out by your highest priority. So let's say, you know, your mortgage or your rent is your highest priority. You're going to make sure that you have that covered first. Then you'll go to your utilities, maybe car payment, debt, then your, well, obviously groceries and gas, but it would be like minimum of that stuff. And then any additional that you need to pay for debt. And if you had any left, savings. But really it's kind of taking like, okay, what has to get paid to make ends meet here? So if you have an irregular income, or like I said, on a really tight budget, this is a good option because you are just going through and prioritizing and making sure, okay, do I have enough to cover the things so that I can pay, you know, to keep a roof over my head, to make sure there's food on the table, to make sure the lights and the water are on and running. This really could work for anyone, but it's not always going to be the most effective because essentially you're just making sure that you're covering those higher priority bills and expenses first. So it kind of makes it harder to dive in more into the different categories or to prioritize like getting out of debt or saving. So I hope that this video has been helpful for you guys as we've kind of broken through and given an overview over each different budgeting method. There's so many different ways that you could combine these. Like I said, the cash envelope is one that I think could be really used with all of them. And I'm obviously a huge supporter of the cash envelope method, whether you use that physical cash or more electronic, it does work. Anything that we can do to make sure that we are stewarding our finances well, keeping ourselves accountable, and that we're gonna be able to stick to the budget. That's the most important thing. So my prayer for you is that you'll be able to kind of sort through this and figure out which budgeting method will be the best option for you and your family so that you can stay on track, so that you can get a handle on all of the expenses and finances coming, and that you can be at peace and allow the Lord to just continue to move in your life, to show you the way, and that you can continue to steward all the wonderful blessings that He provides and gives. I hope that you all have a wonderful rest of the week. I thank you so much for taking the time. If you have not yet, please make sure you subscribe and like this video so that it can get out to more people. And I will see you guys in the next video. God bless.